Greetings, YouTube viewers. This is ThorGodofThunder815 coming at you for Creepypasta Monday. This creepypasta was found on the Creepypasta Wiki. It is titled Trick House Madhouse by author unknown. Now, before I get into reading into this creepypasta, this is the player in the game going through the events of him being the character, and I'm going to read every one of these word for word. If you would like the link to this creepypasta, it'll be in the link in the description below. Now, Sakura-chan and I are also taking requests for creepypastas to be read by myself or by Sakura-chan. So let's get into this Creepypasta Monday. It is titled Trick House Madhouse by author unknown. I had been traveling for quite a while on Route 110 when I saw a rest house on the side of the road, next to one of the cycling road's supporting pillars. As me and Blaze, my Growlithe, were both tired and sore from the long walk, we thought it'd be a good idea to stop and rest a little. These rest houses are always appreciated. I grabbed the door handle and pushed the door open, expecting to be greeted by a bunch of trainers enjoying a break and a soda. But this was not the case. The house was empty. Blaze didn't care. He rushed to a cushion lying on the floor, yawned and scratched the cushion before laying down on it, happily enjoying himself. I looked around the house, asking out loud if there was anybody present, but my calls were left unanswered. I then saw a little note left on the desk, and I read it. Hello and welcome to the Trick House. Here the rules are simple. Find me and you get a free prize. Best of luck, the Trick Master. I thought that was great. All kinds of contests are being held here and there around Hoenn, giving out free TMs as prizes. This must have been one of them. And there was one specific TM I had been desperately searching for quite some time. I decided to play along, but it turned out to be not that big of a challenge. As soon as my eyes left the note, I heard something scratching nearby, as if someone had dragged something on the floor. I turned around and saw a huge vase standing where the sound seemed to come from. Blaze had heard it too, and was already there, scratching the vase frantically. I looked inside and saw someone sitting still, staring back at me. It's no use. I found you, I told the man, face-palming. Damn it, he answered, before getting up and handing me a TM. All right, here's your prize. Next time I'll be more careful. Come again. I soon left the house to continue my trip, kinda disappointed that it was still not the TM I was looking for. I came back the next morning, curious about which trick he was up to this time, and hoping it wouldn't be as pathetic as the day before. Just like before, there was nobody in when I entered. Blaze started sniffing every corner of the house as I read the note that was left on the table. Hello and welcome to the second edition of the Trick House. Here the rules are simple. Find me and you get a free prize. Best of luck, the Trick Master. Hint, I'm hiding in the backyard. I laughed. So now he basically was telling us where he was. Though I couldn't remember the house ever having a backyard the previous day. I saw a back door that wasn't there before and walked through it. There we were in the backyard. The Trick Master certainly outdid himself within a single night. I laughed even harder. I found myself at the entrance of a small maze of freshly transplanted flowers and plants of all kinds, completely secluded by a tall white wooden fence. It was actually pretty calming and beautiful to see, honest. Blaze followed close behind, carefully sniffing his surroundings. It didn't take much time before I saw some bush move in the corner of my eye. It was either a Pokemon, either the Trick Master failing at subtly again. It turned out to be the latter. Once again, he gave me a TM and said he'd try harder next time. Once again, I thanked him and left. At that point I was laughing so much I was starting to cry. This was getting ridiculous. Little did I know, things would soon change. The next day I walked up to the house with Blaze again. The door was locked. I knocked and the trick master's voice answered me. "I'm not ready. Please come back later." I smiled. I didn't know what he was doing in there, but it looked like he was putting a lot of efforts, thoughts, and time into it this time. I came back the next day and got the same answer again. "I'm not ready. Please come back later." I shrugged and left. I forgot about the trick house for about a week, until I happened to pass by on Cycling Road. I had stopped to give some water to Blaze. It was a very hot day, and we were both tired and thirsty. As I was enjoying the landscape during the short break, I noticed a house under the bridge and remembered that that was the trick house, and, well, I thought I'd pay a visit. As soon as we got to the front door, a chill ran down my spine. I couldn't see any light coming from the windows. It was pitch black inside. That was probably part of the new trick, so I didn't pay much attention. I opened the door and walked inside carefully, Blaze still to my side. I ordered him to use his flash ability to lighten up the room so I could see where I was going. As soon as he did, I gasped. It seemed like nobody had set foot in there in years. And when I say years, I really mean it. The whole place, the floor, the walls, the furniture, everything was covered in a layer of dust so thick it was actually hard enough to be lifted off. All light bulbs were blown, and the plastic light switch had disintegrated. The furniture looked like it was thrown around, although in reality they had just collapsed after their wooden legs had given up. The curtains and the carpet were partially eaten by mites, and old graffiti paint could be seen tearing off a wall under the dust. Some of the windows had been covered with wooden planks and thick dried-out spiderwebs. I walked up to the desk, which had taken an unnatural white color and looked like it was made out of calcified wood. The usual note was there. I picked it up and blew the dust off of it. All that dust made Blaze sneeze for a good while. Hello and welcome to the 3rd edition of the Trick House. Here the rules are simple. Find me and you get a free prize. Best of luck, the Trick Master. Hint, you have to find me at the very end of the house. I did not smile, nor laugh, nor get any other kind of reaction. I just didn't know what to think. This was all just too weird. Once again, I decided to play along for some unknown reasons. A decision I was soon going to regret. I walked to the back door, and as soon as my hand grabbed the handle, Blaze started to growl fiercely. I turned around in shock. Blaze had a relaxed nature. He was a nice and patient little fellow who did not worry about a thing. He was always very calm and thoughtful. Growling was a very rare thing for him, and this kind of growl was such an unnatural behavior that it worried me. It felt like he was growling for his life. He bit on my pants and tried to pull me away from the door. He was not the same Growlithe I knew, and I didn't know what to do. I tried to talk him into calming down, but without success. I kept on pulling on my pants until he ripped the bottom of the pants leg off. This angered me and I yelled at him, without thinking for a second that he only wanted to protect me. He understood that I wouldn't listen to him, so he just sat there in the middle of the room, staring at me and the door, all while growling. I opened the door and walked through it, but this time Blaze did not follow me. The backyard's garden, too, was different. The maze of fresh flowers and bushes were now a mess of overgrown dead plants covering the whole place. There was a thick mist in the area that blurred my sight past 3 or 4 meters. I walked around for a while. There was no sounds. A tall wooden fence was replaced by stone walls, and a thick glass roof covered the entire garden, explaining why the place was rather well lit. I had to be careful not hurting myself on the thorns of the defunct overgrown rose bushes, and at some point, a Zubat nearly crashed into my face. Seeing it made me feel a little better. At least there were still a few living beings in there, and the sound of its wings flapping broke the loud buzzing my ears produce out of hearing music at a high volume for so many years. The garden gave on a dark corridor the size of a normal door. I used the screen of my Pokénav to light my path as I was walking. The corridor was getting narrower at each step I took, and I eventually ended up crawling through a tiny passageway before finding myself in another room. By then I knew something wasn't right, due to the simple fact that, when I saw the house from above, it was still somewhat a small house with the river flowing close behind. There is no way such rooms could exist. The room I was now in was completely empty and dark, except for a round table in the center with a single spotlight above it. The spotlight lighting up the table was strong, and it created a painful contrast with the rest of the room. Matter of fact, the light it created did not radiate throughout the room as normal lights do. It only lit up the table, and everything around was engulfed in total darkness. Besides, this room was squeaky clean, and everything seemed brand new, as if it had been built and carefully cleaned over a minute ago. There was nothing on the table, and eerily, nothing under it, not even a shadow. I found no other exit to this room than the one I had just come from. Carefully inspecting the walls and floor did not reveal any hidden door or trap. It was a dead end. I shrugged it off and walked back to the small hole in the wall from which I had previously crawled through. As I was about to enter it, I heard a clear and distinct hissing sound fly right by my ear. I jumped and looked behind. Everything was total darkness. The spotlight had gone out. If the trick master's new trick involved scaring people, well, right now it was working, and working damn well. I faced the hole again. I heard a light clipping sound resonating through the room. I looked back again. The light was back, and on the table stood a shiny Teddy Ursa, which did nothing but stare intensively at me with a larger-than-should-ever-be grin, which literally extended from ear to ear. I screamed and hurried back into the hole, crawling as fast as I could through the narrow passage until it got bigger and I finally could stand on two legs and run again. I found myself facing a door that I clearly remembered was not there before. I hesitated to open it. Where was I going to end up? I looked behind, facing the option of returning to Teddy Ursa's room. I definitely did not want to go back there, so I opened the door, closing my eyes in fright of what could be behind it. I heard it close behind me. I did not dare to move. I wanted to call out for Blaze. He would have showed me the way back out, but deep inside, I knew he wouldn't hear me. I started to feel something crawl up my ankles, and then my legs. I shook, tried to chase whatever it was with my hand, but it did not work. I dared to open an eye, and the feeling disappeared. There was nothing. I was relieved. I looked around. 4 large and tall dead trees stood around me, casting dark and heavy shadows on the ground. The ground was an odd mix of dried earth and white grass. I could see no light source around. Yet, the area was lit with a soft white light that reminded me of a strong moonlight. Oh, how I wish Blaze was by my side. How I wish I had listened to him when he tried to warn me. How I wish I never witnessed such eerily abnormal sceneries that just couldn't exist. This whole thing simply could not exist. It broke every logics and physics law out there. Rooms where there is no place for them, objects that cast no shadows, light sources failing to reflect around the room, a corridor with 2 locations on a single end. None of it made any sense. I carefully walked amongst the trees, once in a while, jumping and looking back after I felt something blow on my neck. The place grew colder by the minute, and I was freezing. I walked for what felt like an hour. I started to see a house up ahead. Where was this place? Had the trick house led me into some place hidden far in a forest? Was it night already? I took out my Pokénav to look at the time. My new Pokénav's battery was dead. Either something had drained its energy out, either I had been in there for way longer than my brain would tell me. I reached the house and stopped. Somehow I'd seen this house before, but I couldn't recall where. I tried to open the door, but it was locked. There was a small piece of paper. It was hanging on the handle. It read, "I need a key." Of course I could see that. But where was the key? I heard a low and loud humming behind me, and I started to panic. I was not alone, and I didn't know what else there was there with me, and wasn't sure if I wanted to know or not. I turned around, shaking. Obviously, I didn't see anyone or anything. The temperature had dropped even more, and it felt like I'd been freezing to death soon if I did not find a way out. I saw something on the floor. It was shining like a metal object reflecting the light. I ran to it, and the thing that was there with me followed me. I felt it right behind me all this time. It was breathing on my neck and letting out low growls in my ear. A key! It was a key right there on the floor. I grabbed it, but to my surprise, it wouldn't come, like something was holding it on the ground. I pulled harder. Then I felt it again, that crawling on my ankles. This time I could see what it was. The thick shadows cast by the trees were crawling at my legs. My heart was racing so hard I thought I'd faint from fright. Looking around me made me realize that all the shadows were leaning toward me. I felt it upon my hands, too. Was holding the key down, was now creeping up my hands, pulling them down as well. I pulled as hard as I could, as adrenaline rushed into my body. I screamed as loud as I could, a scream able to wake the dead. Finally, it gave up. Whatever it was released its grip, and I fell on my back with the key in my hand. I got up and looked around the house. Light was now flittering out of the windows, and I remembered where I had seen it. It was the trick house itself. I rushed to it, clumsily drove the key into the keyhole, and turned the handle. It worked. The door opened, and I ran inside, closing it right behind me. I was back at the entrance of the trick house, in a well-lit, normal main room, and the trick master standing behind his desk, looking at me with a face as white as a ghost. We stared at each other for what seemed eternity, both of us wanting for the other one to talk first. I was the one to break the silence. Why are you so white?" I faintly asked, my voice refusing to obey me. He, in the same faint voice, answered, You came in not 5 seconds ago. Eerily unsubstantial, like a black and white holographic version of yourself. I tried to get your attention, but you walked right through me and exited the back door. Which I thought was funny because I destroyed the backyard and blocked the way out. And expecting you to come back through the door again, you came through the front one. I did not know what to say. My jaw simply dropped to the floor. I looked out the door and saw sunny Route 110. And looking back, I saw Blaze, peacefully sleeping on the cushion. What the hell had just happened? Where had I been? I will never know. That was Trick House Madhouse. Final thought. Slow at the beginning, more talkative than any of the real scary parts, until it came up to the very end. A couple of things that I noticed about this creepypasta. Grammar, I had to stop maybe 4 or 5 times the first time reading this through and try to correct and use proper grammar. The use of the trick house, and I know this is coming from the player in the game's point of view, like the player thinking how the player would react if the trick house was like this. I know this for a fact. Trick house does not always give out TMs, but it was a good reference to use instead of just like specific items and other things that you can use for your journey. And in the trick house, you have to find out where he is, and then you proceed to the back of the house. However, here, he finds the trick master, gives him his prize, and then leaves. And I know at one point of the game, when you go through the trick house, he does say he's not ready, please come back later, because you do it maybe 3 or 4 times in a row, and he does say that. Slow, like I said, slow at the beginning, doesn't lead up to the scary part until merely 2/3 of the way into the story, and the way that this character's Growlithe acts, if you're a trainer in the Pokemon world, you do not know what type of nature your Pokemon is. And this story is not read from the player playing the game. And this is another, like I said, I like this creepypasta. It is not one of those, I played a hacked game, it haunted me for the rest of my life, it broke, I'm not going to tell anybody about it, I threw it away. Biggest cliche of those type of creepypastas that I don't like. The one I like about here is how the writer and the character used himself as a point of view is himself in the Pokemon world, but you would not know what type of nature your Pokemon has, especially when he says his Growlithe growled at him and barked at him when he tried to tug on his pant legs and tell him to move, and he said Blaze was a relaxed nature, and his growling and his barking was very rare to him. Another part of the creepypasta that I liked the most was the use of figurative, imaginative things to stop and hold you back. Like, it's not a demon, it's not a Pokemon that's terrorizing you, it's something that you would experience in like a sci-fi or a animated horror film. It was like no death, it was just a scary point of view of terror and fright, and you end up back at the first place where you started. I really liked this creepypasta, and the point of notes being left around saying what you need, like especially the one with the key, you need to find a key, and he uses it after, like, another part that I said that I like was the use of the figurative meaning of the imaginative of the shadows grabbing him, and it wasn't like twisting his body parts and blood was flying everywhere. No, it was just like his fright took over his mind and he was thinking this all to himself. And the very end he said, why are you so white? And the trick master said, you just came in 5 seconds ago. And the point of where he just walked in, trick master didn't like have any communicative with him, he just like walked right by him anyway. And it was like the very beginning. It was very well written, except for a couple of the grammar parts, like I said. But I liked the use of the meanings and the figurative of fright in this creepypasta instead of the hacks and the blood and the demons, and especially when it transpires into real life. If you would like this creepypasta, if you want to see it for yourself, I will give the link in the description. However, I will try to find another creepypasta next Monday, and I'll go from there. I might even read one myself. I will have Sakura-chan read one for herself as well. You could find the link of the description of every creepypasta we will do every Monday in the description below. If you think this creepypasta needs to be done better, if you think you can make any changes to it, just leave it in the comments, or you can just send it to the author yourself. As again, description's in the link below. What would you rate this creepypasta as, and what would you do to make it better? This is ThorGodofThunder815 signing off for Creepypasta Monday.